we were like, what do you mean she can't go to World Cups? She's good enough. When she got appealed out in Prague in 24, we were bracing ourselves for full-on depression. It's just quite surreal to see your daughter, with strangers wanting an autograph and stuff. I remember running over to the athlete area where you could talk to them, and the big security guards would step in front of her and say, "Is it okay if this person approaches you?" I was like, "What? It's me, Erin." She hardly ever drinks, but she was definitely semi under the influence when she had to do that interview.
Welcome to another episode of the That's Not Real Climbing podcast. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today, Carl McNeice. If it's not obvious, Carl is Erin McNeice's dad, and I'm so thrilled to get a parent perspective on the podcast. In this episode, we'll learn about the family's dedication and honest approach to building Erin's climbing career, how much it costs to support the training and travel of an athlete, why he's no longer allowed to watch her comps in person, and we'll get adorable dad anecdotes from the Olympics. I hope you enjoy this episode with Carl. Real quick, I'm excited to announce my new sponsor helping make this podcast episode possible, Mad Rock Climbing. I got fitted with their brand new line of high-performance shoes, the D2.1s. They just came out December 6th, but you might notice a few of your favorite gum climbers are already wearing them, like Oscar Beaudrand from Team Canada, and also me. This is the first time I've gotten to wear their shoes for an extended period of time, and I'm actually super impressed with the grip of their in-house rubber. And of course, the famous drone heel that everyone says is the cheat code to heel hooking small edges. Feel free to message me if you have any questions about the shoes or sizing, and you can use the discount code NotRealClimber for 10% off your entire Mad Rock order. Info will be in the description. Back to the show. It's quite late for you, isn't it?
It's 9 o'clock, yeah. And my first day back at work after 2 weeks off. So,
oh wow,
a lovely day at work. And
just getting back from Innsbruck still, or
yeah, we had about 8 days in Innsbruck, and then the rest of them building a garage.
Oh, okay.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Is it done, or
it's done. It's standing. Hasn't fallen over yet.
Impressive. Do you have any other travel plans coming up soon?
No, I did have, but some of the feedback from Innsbruck means that I won't have.
Oh wait, what does that mean?
It's just some of the observations from Erin in terms of having the pressure of people. Not pressure, that's the wrong word. I think the expectation and the fact that you're there, and therefore she feels the need to spend time with you, and so which sort of breaks the rhythm of her being involved 100% with the coaches, getting herself into the right zone, having her sort of alone time, recovery time, all that sort of stuff. It just distracts from it. So and it is incredibly stressful, which I'm sure we'll get onto later. So I don't think it's a particularly bad outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely going to ask about that later, but I guess, how are you feeling about that? I feel like that could be a little bit sad to work through. Hard to work through.
I guess everybody's different, and we get to watch her at have got to watch her at a lot of competitions. I just think at the end of the day, I think the thought of going to watch them at the competitions is nice, and it is nice. But it is, they're World Cups, they're the top level of competition climbing, and the little things matter. So at the end of the day, if the athlete is performing less well or could perform less well because you're there, then that's 100% the right thing to do. But, plus, physically being there for some reason, it is a lot worse for me anyway than watching it on television.
Yeah, so does that mean you haven't seen the other World Cups in the start of the season? You didn't make it out to those either?
No, the Asia ones, no. And again, I think that was very much because start of the season, you have no idea really where you are compared to everybody else. And I think at that point, you can't really add very much. she doesn't need emotional support, or if she does need it, she can call. Really, she just needs the interaction with the coaches. She'll respond better to the coaches, and they fundamentally they know more than I know about the the competition, the performance, why the performance was good or bad, what can be tweaked realistically within the period of time, all that sort of stuff. And they have a way of working which you can disrupt quite easily. So that and cost.
Well, oh yeah, cost for sure. I get that. Okay, well, we'll definitely get into all those topics later. But first, just so we get to learn a little bit more about who you are. I mean, in the intro, I will have told everyone you are Erin's dad. But I think a big question a lot of people want to know, like immediately, as soon as possible, do you climb much?
Yeah, so I got into climbing about doing the maths when I was about 18 when I went to university, and I'm 55 now, so a long time ago. And all the time I was at university for 6 years, not because I failed,
Okay.
did
Okay.
a
Yeah.
PhD as well. It was the easy option. So get a job or do a PhD.
Mm,
I think I'll do a PhD and stay in education a bit longer.
mm.
Um, the so I got to climb for sort of 6 years, and I did it in North Wales. So I had access to all the mountains there. So I sort of got into climbing there. I was not very good at it, because they did have climbing walls, but the climbing walls were pretty rubbish, and the people I climbed with were proper mountaineer. Yeah, they only went out on rock, and they only did lead routes.
Okay.
Um,
Dirtbag
and I
style.
yeah, and apart from the slate quarries, there it was pretty much all natural gear. And I just crapped myself basically whenever I had to lead, unless it was really, really simple. So I overgripped everything, pumped out on most stuff. But it was still good fun. And then you had people like Johnny Dawes sort of at that stage doing amazing stuff. So yeah, my few claims to fame were going to a few parties, and Johnny Dawes was there,
Oh.
talking to the elite, and I was like, wow, we went to a party.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I got into it that way. Then left university, got a job, largely stopped climbing, and then when we had kids and they were, I don't know, old enough, 4, 5, 6, we introduced them to various things, and climbing was one of them. So I then got back into climbing. I probably climb maybe twice a week now, sometimes
Hey,
more.
that's pretty often.
Yeah, yeah, not yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess I guess I'm comparing myself
Yeah, if
to
you're comparing yourself
the
to
other
Erin, that's
people
not
I know.
yeah. I mean, I climb like 3 to 4 times a week, so yeah, I think that's often. I honestly don't wanna climb more than, like, 3 days a week, so
But yeah, twice a week is quite pleasant, and obviously it's just climbing. I rarely do any strength and conditioning or
Mhm.
fingerboarding, and I don't even like the boards themselves. Erin makes me do the board, and it's just I'm pathetic at that.
Oh, well. It's a separate skill almost.
It seems to be, to me anyway.
But during my interview with Erin, I'll link that in the description for those who haven't heard it yet also. But she mentioned that you used to do gymnastics. When was
Yeah.
that?
So when I went to university, so I'd lived in Australia.
Whoa,
I was
okay.
born in England, but I was living in Australia from, I don't know, 79 to 83 or something. So I competed in Australia, where at that point in time the standard was lower. So I was like at national level. And I came back to England, and I was really right on the periphery of national level. But yeah, so I did it at a relatively high standard. And then I went to university with a thought to sort of continue my training, but soon got distracted by other things.
Okay.
Um, but I did the university championships in the UK, and I think I came third in my
Wow.
final undergraduate year, and then I did it again in my last year of PhD. And I want to say I came third again, but I might have come fourth or fifth. But yeah, but I sort of did relatively okay.
That's
And
cool.
then post university, I I stopped that as well, 'cause it's quite hard to
Oh,
find
for sure.
places to do the gym, especially the six different sort of disciplines. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that was, I guess everyone will say it's useful because I've got some element of body awareness and stuff. But
yeah, and just like the understanding of what it's like being an athlete. She mentioned that she believes you could still do some of the tricks from gymnastics. What tricks do you think you could still pull off right now? I mean, I won't make you do anything, but if you want to show off anything, now's your chance.
Yeah, the easy, weirdly, the easy, like handstands and things like that are easy, and you can hold, once you know the tricks, you can hold a handstand for a long time, and flick flacks, backflips,
Mm,
and back somersaults. I could probably do a front somersault, but they're harder to land.
cool. Wish we could see it.
Yeah, I'll go and spend an hour warming up and then send you a video.
Oh, that would be great, actually. I would really love to see that. Okay, and so now getting back into the climbing portion of your life, how did you end up getting involved in like the climbing competition scene with Erin?
So, most of the walls in the UK run fun competitions each year. At least one, but sometimes many, and they run the sort of boulder leagues as well. So they put the problems up, and you've got so much time to log how many you do or how many attempts and stuff. So we got into it through the fun competitions first, and often they have a junior category or youth category. So that's how we first got into it. And then different. Well, you've got various competitions which run locally in the UK. So we got into some of those, and then they have what's called a youth climbing series, which as the name suggests is sort of, it's done regionally, and then I think it's the top 3 from each region go to a grand final in well, usually in Scotland, at the National Climbing Centre there. And then you get crowned the Youth Climbing Series champion, which then qualifies you for the GB team. Weirdly, if you're on the GB team, you're not allowed to enter it.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a sort of backdoor route in, but it opens it up to a much wider environment. And then unbeknown to us at that time, you then have national competitions like the UK nationals, Welsh nationals, Scottish nationals, all of which, if you win or podium, get you the right to go to the GB selection, whether it's for junior grades or senior grades. So we had no idea really how the GB team thing worked, but through doing some of those competitions and the YCS youth climbing series, we became aware of the GB climbing team, and they were like, I don't know, yeah, it's like when you where you see these elite group of people who are warming up and doing their thing, and
Yeah,
then they
sure.
absolutely destroy you, on the wall. That was what it was like the first time we saw them, and they were all wearing their kit and stuff. And I think that's when Aaron sort of clocked them and thought, oh, they're on a different level. I can go and win a local comp, but these guys are on a completely different level. And I think that sort of inspired her to see if she could get up to that level and see if she could get onto the team.
So how young do you think she was when she kind of first had that thought of wanting to make the national team?
I guess it happened quite quickly, so I'm guessing it was like 14, maybe something like 12 or 4. I really should know.
Okay.
But because when she went for it, we just moved her from one climbing wall to another climbing wall against her will.
Why against her will?
So I guess one of the challenging things is to work out what's best for them to achieve their goals without trying to be pushy about it. So we had 2 children, both climbing. Her brother, who's about a year and a half, 2 years older, and they were climbing at a wall called the Reach in southeast London for their squad. But there was another wall called the Castle in London itself, which had a much stronger squad and a much more focused squad, and a lot of those squad had moved into the GB team. And our son wanted to go to that squad, wanted to go and try out for that squad. Erin didn't. We persuaded them both to go to the tryouts, and they both got offered a space, and Erin did not want to go at all. But we sort of said, well, if Callum's going, there's no way we're going to go to two different walls. So yeah, you're going to have to go there. And eventually she decided it was, really good and much better. But it was, we sort of thought they would put them both in the same squad, but for reasons only known to them, they decided to put them in two different squads. I think because they felt Erin was too young to be in the same squad as Callum. But that meant that they had to go 2 times a week, and one squad was on 2 days and the other squad was on the other 2 days.
Oh,
So there
no.
was a period of about 2.5 years where every single day we were having to drive from where we live
Ugh.
into the centre of London, where my wife was having to do that drive. So she basically picked the kids up from school, got them in the car, gave them food, drove into the centre of London, which was
Oh my God.
circa 2-hour drive.
That is so
Um,
inefficient.
yeah, and then drive all the way back.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, thinking back to the youth scene, or yeah, just when she was growing up, do you remember any times where you needed to like push her more, or I guess like how do you find the balance between when to push versus when to back off and suggest more rest?
My experience when she was younger was that she didn't. Yeah, the schedule wasn't intense. It was more intense than a normal person, but yeah, she probably wasn't doing more than 3 or 4 days a week. And she probably wasn't climbing for more than 4 hours in any of those sessions. And a 4-hour session would just be like, playing around on boulders. They were structured to some extent, but not massively structured. And the competitions sort of lent themselves. There were obvious ones that she had to do, which were the nationals. So she would go to all of those if she could do. And then you had some higher profile sort of fun competitions, which aspirationally I think she wanted to do. But yeah, we didn't really have to. Sometimes we had to suggest to her ones to do, just because we thought it would be a good idea. But generally at that age, she was quite happy to compete in most scenarios. I would say that so it was all fine. And then she went to some EYCs. I think she did a year, so she had 4 EYCs, which were, she did okay, and I think she came 25th just about every single one of them. So she didn't make semis or anything. But first year on the team, she seemed quite happy with that, and we were quite happy with that. And then COVID came, so the next year was completely wiped out. I think she did one national competition, which was she did the Welsh boulder and came third, and then in her age group, and then she did the UK lead or something and won it, and then COVID hit and everything was shut down. And then I think we went like a whole, all the way through that season, and then they opened up World Championships, Youth World Championships, and she got to go to that, and I think she'd been allowed to go to 2 training days as we were allowed to travel as an elite athlete. So she went to the Youth World Championship and came 5th,
Oh, okay. Not bad.
which was good, or unexpectedly good. 5th in boulder, I think 10th or 11th in lead. And then obviously things started to loosen up, and she could actually get to competitions the following year. But then she started to break into the senior squad. So she had less interest in going to the youth ones and was more focused on the seniors. And I think, I don't know, we had a lot of discussions because around which competitions to go to and all that sort of thing. So when you're in the senior squad, you can either go to the regionals. So ours would be the European. I guess in your case, it would be North South Asia. It wouldn't be Asia Pacific. It would be North South America, or
Uh-huh.
I don't know what they're called. Um, so you have a choice between going to the European Cups, or if you qualify, you can go to the World Cups. The European Cups being slightly easier. So I think she had a year when she first broke into the team. She had a year doing the European Cups because they actually said, she's transitioning into the senior team and we don't think she should go to World Cups. I think at that stage she was probably second, I think, in Boulder in the UK and second, third in lead. So we were we were like, "What do you mean she can't go to World Cups? She's good enough." And actually, Tom, who you had on the program as well. So Tom sort of said, "Yeah, I think it's right." And with hindsight, he was 100% correct. So it's another really good example of why you should listen to coaches.
It was right as in she should have started the World Cups earlier?
No,
Or?
no. She should have eased herself, and she should and did ease herself into the European Cups, because I think, you know, you always want to jump in. Well, yeah, I think as a parent, you sort of like, oh yeah, if she's good enough, she's good enough, and there's merit to that to some point. Um, but the gap is so big. You're going from the European Cup into the World Cups. The gap is huge. If you look at some of the results, you'll see people winning a European Cup and then not making semi-finals at a World Cup. Yeah, not always. You get some like Oriane Bertone smashed it all the way through. Um, so you do get some exceptions, but yeah, it's just such a big jump up, and it's a jump up from nationals to Europeans or the regionals. So it was, with hindsight, it was 100% the correct thing to do because it allowed her to see where the level was, get herself up to a reasonable level within the European Cups, and then sort of reset for the World Cups. And weirdly, because of various cancellations, because COVID was still kicking around, some of the European Cups were cancelled. So they said, "Oh, in that case, because you couldn't go to those, we'll send you to a couple of World Cups." So it worked out really, really well in the end. She got to see European Cups. She made one final, um, and didn't trouble the podium. Actually, she made one final, and it was a lead, and she was completely misread a section of the lead route and decided to. Everybody else went like it was a sort of pockets traverse. Everybody else did it pocket traverse with feet, and Erin decided she'd try to campus the whole thing, and she campused most of it, but then just ran out of energy on the final move. But yeah, so she did that, and then she could, yeah. So she was like, "Oh yeah, I made a final," and then she went to the World Cups, and so I think she was 40 something. So yeah, she was like, "Oh my god, that's a whole nother level. What do I need to do?"
Okay, yeah. And in terms of the whole process, like memberships, teams, coaching, all of that must kind of add up and be quite expensive. If you're comfortable with it, could you do you want to give an estimate of how much all of it cost every year?
Yeah, I mean the membership is not. I honestly don't know how much it is. It's a British Mountaineering Council membership. It's not. I mean, it's not debilitating. Um, yeah, I mean, you have to go to certain competitions, and they generally cost 60, 70 quid to enter. Well, the only ones that we tend to go to are the selection ones now, which are two of them. So yeah, again, that's not, yeah, it's cost, but it's not a particularly high cost. The biggest one I would say is, again, different for different athletes, but I would say when when your child suddenly decides that actually this is something I want to take seriously, then you've got to take it seriously as well. And generally that means that you can't just go to the same wall every day. So yeah, if you happen to live close enough to a wall, and we chose a place to live in Kent, which at that point in time had no walls anywhere near it. I think the closest one was about 50-minute drive.
Oh,
They've
wow.
they've subsequently built about 3 quite close when we moved away. Um,
Nice.
but
Of course.
but yeah, when she made that decision, we were like, okay, so yeah, we need to get you to various locations so you can experience different route setting, different problems, because they do reset quite frequently, but not massively frequently. And if it's the same setters, it tends to be similar styles. Um, yeah, so basically, we were writing off weekends. So you make a sacrifice in time, sacrifice in cost, because so we had to, we'd go up to Sheffield a lot. That was a 4-hour drive, staying overnight.
Jeez.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's probably where the cost element comes in, and then because they're unknowns, a lot of the walls would say, "Oh yeah, we'll let the GB senior squad come and climb for free, but the junior squad we won't. You got to pay. Then you're paying as a parent as well. Often, if you happen to want to have a little play as well, which is all fine. But that's another £10 to £15 per day, and then the food that you're spending whilst you're there and stuff. Even if you try to do as much of that as you can, and then if they get the internationals, you obviously got to pay for them to go out there, pay for them to stay somewhere. Often when they're young, I think a lot of parents do accompany them out, so then you're paying for yourselves to go out as well. So I think that's where the cost comes in. I'd say it's probably 10 to 20,000.
Whoa.
I mean that might be 10 would be the minimum, 20 would be the absolute maximum, I'd say. Whilst they're spinning, I mean, right at the beginning of it wasn't that much. Towards the end of us paying for everything, it was probably closer to that, because we were obviously paying for everything for her. She was living in a lot of different hotels to train, and then we were ferrying her around everywhere, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I think it's slightly different now because she has got other funding options. But I think at its worst, it was probably pushing towards 15,000-20,000.
Yeah, jeez.
And I suspect you could probably do it cheaper, but that was we used to send her off to competitions with a sort of suitcase in which there was a hot pot, which you can plug in and make your own pasta and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So which weirdly she still does that. Even though she doesn't have to now, she still does that because she actually likes that process, weirdly. So
yeah, I mean, like
the
still ritual consistency.
Yeah, I think and it's easy, isn't it? It's not particularly exciting. She just makes pasta, pesto, and tuna, so she could take all of that with her. So she also then doesn't have to sort of go out and find it.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, geez, yeah. I mean, a lot of sacrifice, and it's not cheap to get into.
No, I do remember one of the fathers turning around to me, I think at the beginning of the second year, and saying, "You're going to destroy cars," and he was right. We did put a lot of miles onto cars.
Yeah, I mean that's really far drives. I didn't know that the UK was that big.
Yeah, if we drove up to from where we lived in, which is just outside London, or commuter town of London, we used to, if we had to go up to Ratho, we'd either fly up there or it would be a 7-8 hour drive. Which in itself, I mean, then you start to get into the whole debate of you got to factor in the fact that sitting down for 7-8 hours is not the best sort of preparation to then go and climb as hard as you can, because you're going all the way to a really, really good wall. So then you start to get into actually it would be better to fly, even though it might be more expensive, because then I'm going to have to hire a car when I get at the other end and drive. So so you start to get into a lot of those sort of considerations.
Good thing you went through the sacrifice. It paid off, thankfully. But I mean, it looks like when you look through her results, I felt like before maybe like 2023-ish, she was still pretty unknown, sort of like even like a little bit quiet in the youth scene. What happened between like 2023 and 2024 that made it such an incredible season after?
Yeah, so 2023 was the year when she did World Cups, like almost. I think it was exclusive. I think she did one European Cup right at the beginning of the season, then she just did World Cups, and that was the year when you had to get the OQS points. Basically, the top 40, I think, ranked went to OQS, and then so she was basically looking at that year as saying, okay, so this is the year I need to try to get myself into the top 40, and she not really changed her training plan massively. And it was all relatively new as well. We'd moved to a company called Lattice who create training plans, and we'd just moved from working with Jen Wood, who's a really great GB athlete and a coach with Lattice, and we'd moved to Ollie Tor, who sort of owns and runs Lattice, who was providing even more bespoke. Because I think Jen was in a bit of a weird position because she was still on the team at that point in time, so she was coaching Erin. So that was sort of new. She was working really closely with, or starting to work more closely with Rachel Carr, who was one of the GB coaches. So we sort of went through that year, and she did. I think she said, she squeaked in, literally squeaked in. And then we sat down with Tom Greenall, who was the GB head coach at the time, with Rachel, with Ollie, and me. And they sort of said to her, so Evan's very good at talking to us. She's not very good at talking to other people openly. She's much better at it now, but then she was quite quiet. They were like, "Oh, well, yeah, what do you want?" And she was like, "Well, I want to go and do my best, blah blah." I think Tom was sort of saying, "Well, yeah, what do you want? Do you want to go and do your best and enjoy it? Do you want to go and qualify for the Olympics? Do you want to go and put down a statement, sort of thing?" And she went, "Yeah." I think she actually said, "Yeah," and Tom was like, "Say it, say what you want." And they did actually make her say, "I want to go, I want to go to OQS and I want to qualify. And ideally, I'd like to qualify comfortably." So they sort of said that, and then they basically sort of said, "Okay, so there's a lot to work on."
Oh,
It
wow,
wasn't.
yeah.
They didn't sort of pull any punches in terms of what that was going to look like in terms of the training plan. And they've sort of said, "You're going to go deep into a hole. You're going to feel like absolute crap. We're going to have to push it really hard." I think that's the famous
Yeah.
famous Tom line of keep pushing. If she doesn't break, keep pushing.
Yeah, I
But
remember that
she
one.
was massively behind where she needed to be. And she'll say that as well. Yeah, she was nowhere near the level one to qualify for the Olympics at that point in time, but actually to be any sort of a contender at a World Cup, she was a non-entity. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. I mean, there was no event which could have happened where she would have made a final, let
Sure, yeah.
alone podium.
Just like
So
honesty of
yeah,
what,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolute brutal honesty, I think, which I think really works well with Erin. And it may not work well with other athletes, but it certainly worked well with Erin. And she had seen, I think she'd been observing some other athletes that she'd seen who were dead on their feet at the end of a session, and she was like, "Well, I don't actually feel like that a lot of the time." So, and I think the other key thing we said to Ollie was, like, if you look at her 24 season, it started off okay. I can't remember where she came. I think she did one Boulder World Cup and came 39th or something, and then she made a semi-final in South Korea, came 17th or something, and then she just tailed off. It got worse and worse. And
In the
then
23 season, or
23,
okay, yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna say 24. I'm pretty sure she made a
yeah,
finals.
yeah. She did
Okay.
quite, yeah. So we sort of said, well, how do we need to change the training plan so that it's that we are continuing to work and keep up the standards so we can maintain and actually ideally improve. So if you look at, I think Toby's performances, Toby Roberts, they tend to sort of get better. And obviously he's had a massive turnaround this year at Innsbruck. That's pretty cool. So so all these things came into play. She went into a brutal training plan. And our job in that was quite simple. So, I guess quickly we realised that often she'll have, Rachel will sort of work with her, but Rachel can't go there. And there were 8-9 hour days, so Rachel can't be there for all of that time because she's obviously servicing a lot of other athletes. Ollie would sort of pop in, pop out, have a look at stuff. We brought in an S&C person, so they were sort of involved. But in reality, I think she just needed company. So that tended to be me, sometimes my son and Lindsay, and me probably more on the or naturally I think I was happy to do the actual physical activities, but emotionally I'm probably a little less turned on.
Okay.
Whereas Lindsay, my wife, she's much more attuned to that side of it. So I think she was much better at picking her up and sort of saying, um, you need to step away from it, but not step away from the training. Yeah. So there were a number of occasions I think where she was like, you're getting upset, you're getting frustrated, stop. And then we'd be like, "Oh, but I've got still got 2 or 3 hours." She goes, "Yeah, but you can still do 2 or 3 hours, but stop, grab a coffee or grab something to eat, just have a 10, 15-minute break and then go back to it." Yeah, so it wasn't sort of making an excuse to say, "Oh, no, you're upset, let's go home." It was sort of saying, "Take a step away and then go back to it." So, you're not here the nicest possible way. You're not here to feel good. But you knew this is what you signed up to. You knew you would feel crappy and tired and all this sort of stuff. So it's just part of the process. But obviously, the first time you do that, it's quite horrible. And probably, actually, to be fair, the second time you do it, it's not that nice either.
Sure. Yeah.
But the results are nice. So if it all works, so that was the slightly different aspect that we got to experience there, because suddenly it was like, well, we need to split our time up. So most of my holiday that year was sort of spent in a cold gym somewhere,
Hmm.
just being there for Erin. Lindsay basically sort of wound up her work that she was doing so she could spend more time at gyms, uh, and ferrying Erin around to the various locations. Which was absolutely fine because it meant that we were still sort of involved. I got to find weird and wonderful things to do to sort of make some of those exercises more fun.
Yeah. What were some of those exercises?
I think there's so much stuff now on yeah on the internet, so you can look at the sort of exercises that athletes do in other sports, and then sort of either adapt them or say actually that one's relevant to to climbing. Plyometrics is one we really got into, but only where they sort of had some element of you could use this for quick footwork on a coordination boulder, or you could use this for explosive movement off of a boulder. And then you adapt that to say, okay, so let's get ourselves into a really uncomfortable position and then try to explode out of it. Or let's balance on one foot on this block. And that if you sort of move a weight around, and then you can actually start to um, understand which muscles to move in your body. And a lot of stuff with resistance bands where you're resisting the movement but still keeping the balance. So well, personally, I think it starts to teach you how to stop swings and how to counteract barn dooring off of stuff. So we did a lot of that, a lot of balance stuff, and we still muck around with a lot of that. Chucking balls, multiple balls and sort of throwing them back. I think also like I love doing stuff with medicine balls where you catch it at weird angles,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and then so you sort of utilize your muscles which you would normally use, and you can make that very aerobic if you're throwing it all over the place. So that's fun. And I think therefore the warm up can actually end up being sort of an hour plus long, but actually you've done a whole load of you've got your body warm, but you've also done a whole load of other stuff, but it's sort of badged up as a bit more fun, if that works for the person.
How are you involved in her training nowadays, or like how has that evolved? You mentioned, you were like pretty involved before, and now maybe it's kind of waned a bit.
Yeah, so I would say we were not that involved early on because we just relied on the coaches. Then when she became more serious, through COVID, we became more involved just because we sort of had to, because it was all at home. Um, and then as she came out of COVID and became more serious, we became more involved just because we were pulling together a team. So the team. So one of the challenges we've got is you've got Rachel, Carl, Ollie Tor, Tom Parkinson, who's the S&C coach. Those three are working together. And they work together really well. But that's obviously that's a risk to have that many people involved in a training plan. And I really a number of people actually sort of said to me, "I don't think it'll work." But it works for Erin, and it works. But one of the things I try to do is make sure that we have regular meetings as a threesome,
Okay.
to discuss all that sort of stuff, and look at when the next training block is. And that's where it's quite interesting to see them all work together. Because Rachel's at the competition, so she's got direct feedback. Ollie's got all this sort of science and knowledge, but obviously you can only put so much of it into play at a sort of certain point in time. And from an S&C perspective, there's only so much you can do. So there's a bit of maintenance, but actually, if you suddenly sort of say to Tom, we're not going to do this comp, so that gives us a 4-week block. You can be like, okay, in 4 weeks we might be able to achieve something, so let's do this, this, and this. And then Ollie's feeding into that. Rachel's saying, I think that's a good idea. Or actually, no, I don't think it's compression. I think we need to work on contact strength or whatever. So it works. For this dynamic, it works really well, but you do have to work at it a bit. So I would say as she went into the Olympic qualifying bit, we were more in support role and making it fun, and adding in exercises which we thought might add value. After the Olympic year, we had another discussion around what we want to achieve. We wants to achieve for 25, and she wanted to be more consistently challenging for a medal. So obviously that required more training. We had more specific areas of weakness to identify there. So winter wasn't massively different, to be fair. It was back in a hole. But I would say during this year we've probably taken more of a backwards step, because Erin's getting older, so she knows what she has to do. She's got access to more people who she can train with. But we still, I probably, when she's in the country and when she's in a training mode, I'm probably still see her at least once a week. I think her brother's a lot more heavily involved in training with her now. And to be fair, he's far better at setting problems than I am, and
Oh, he
eliminates and
sets.
things like that. He doesn't root set, but he's actually doesn't root set yet. But he'll be able to go to a woody board and sort of say, I'll make up this route for you, or he'll be able to point on a splat wall, and sort of do a 70 move route.
Yeah, jeez. Okay.
To sort of simulate a lead route, and he'll be able to eliminate stuff and sort of say, okay, either climb that but eliminate that and that, or actually climb up to the top using these 3 routes, but only that hold. He just sees stuff like that a lot better than I can. So that's been really useful. And I think some of the more recent videos, certainly on the boards, most of those problems would have been set by Callum, and they're really horrible.
Well, it's nice to have a lot of family support. So earlier you mentioned that being you as a parent, physically being there could be a distraction. Which competitions did you choose to go to? And then I guess I wonder, if you only go to a few select competitions, doesn't she maybe feel even more pressure because that's the one that you see? Please excuse this brief intermission, but if you're interested in deleted scenes from this episode where he talks about the pivotal moments in her training growing up and his perspective on the weird parent dynamics in the youth climbing scene, do consider helping support this podcast on Patreon. Some other perks include a membership pin shipped to you after 2 months, prioritized guest questions, or the ability to submit video questions, and more to come. The proceeds go back into the podcast to help me break even, and they help improve the experience of the guests. If you'd like to help out non-monetarily, liking, commenting, and sharing helps a great deal as well. Back to the show.
Yeah, and I suspect that's some of the issue. So we're not a constant feature at the competition, so we're not part of her setup for the comps. Whereas some of the other parents are a constant feature, which is which works well, I think, or can work well. So we went to Prague, which, to be fair, Prague worked quite well. She did well, qualified for finals in 4th, and then finals were called off, so there was no finals.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which was upsetting. Well, not upsetting, it was a shame. But I still think Oriane had done a really good job there. So that is what it is. And then we went to Innsbruck, mainly because we go to Innsbruck a lot to train. but she'd never actually done the World Cup there. And it's obviously quite a well-informed audience and stuff like that. So it was, one we wanted to go to anyway, just to experience. And that, I think us being there, it was me, Lindsay, and Callum, and her partner. So yeah, I think it just threw her off.
Yeah.
Not in a big way, and it might have happened anyway. But why have that risk there? I mean, at the end of the day, like I say, we were sort of stood in the crowd, and I tend to do little hand movements, so I'm stood in the crowd going, "Oh God, I look like an idiot." Um, and you're basically climbing every move with them. You don't always get a fantastic view. I and I just found it really, really stressful. Lindsay finds it really stressful as well. Um, so when we had the discussion, it was quite an easy discussion, and I think backed up by the coaches as well. You almost get to the point of saying, well, if this is the equivalent of a Masters or a Grand Slam, you're there in your unit of professionalism, with your coaches, with your separate hotels, you're removed from all those influences. And yes, you might see them in the audience, but it's but they've been doing it probably for a number of years. So for me and Lindsay and actually all of us, it was a very simple. We're saying if we present any issue to you at all, and we're very happy not to come. We can watch it on in Europe. You have to watch it on Discovery Plus,
Right. Yeah.
but we can watch it on Discovery Plus. She always calls us up after each of the rounds, so we get to talk to her anyway. And then when she does get back, we can celebrate or commiserate. So it doesn't massively change anything because as you go through the rounds, you can't really celebrate because you're straight back into recovery and all that sort of stuff. And generally, when it finishes, if you do well, so I think Innsbruck, she got third. By the time she'd gone through anti-doping and stuff, it was gone 11 o'clock at night.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So you can't really get anything done in the you can't celebrate too much because she's not wanting to go to a nightclub or anything
Sure,
like that.
yeah.
So literally it was like, oh well, okay. I think we had the leftover food that was in the cafe at the wall in Innsbruck, and then went home. So in some ways it's almost nicer and easier to celebrate when she gets back to the UK, and and all of that bit's done, and she could be 100% with us. It wasn't a hard decision at all, and it was the right decision for her. It might not be as we move into 26, 27, 28, however long. Then I'm sure that we can try to introduce it back in some way or shape. But I'd much rather her be able to perform at her best than physically be there and her maybe not perform at her best.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you also said that the experience of actually watching a competition is kind of terrible. Have you like found any
Yeah.
strategies that helps you calm down from that or?
No, I think one of the first things that we went to as when she got onto the youth team was some sort of psychology thing for parents.
Oh, really? Oh,
Sort of
nice.
saying, "Oh, this is obviously stressful for your kid and stuff, but actually you've got to try to find a way to enjoy it." But obviously no way of how to do that. I've never, I've never found a way of taking away the stress. Um, I am less stressed about it now than previously. But I think that's I don't know. I think I think when she first started competing, we really didn't have any clue. So we're like, oh, maybe, 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 and then with knowledge, we were like, no. Yeah,
Okay.
we're not. They don't televise the qualification, and she's not going to get out of qualification. So this is what it is. So you were basically watching it on the app, uh, um, and then when she had the 24 season, um, it was like, geez, yeah, so that was all like a massive shock. So that was relatively low stress because we're like, Jesus, this, this can't be happening. But then by the time of the Olympics, you then had that glimmer of hope
Yeah.
that, well, could she make the final? And then she made the final. Like, oh my God, could she get, could she get on the podium? So you had that glimmer of hope, which added a bit of stress into it. But I guess that's good stress. So, and even now, I'm still, I think I'm still coming to terms with the fact that she is performing at a really high standard. So, you would on the performances she's done so far, you sort of expect her to make finals. It would be a bit of a shock if she didn't. But in my head, I'm still like, oh, oh, she might not make semis. Um, so that aspect is weird, but yeah, but less stressful now, I think, because she delivers, and certainly getting into semis, that seems to be quite. Yeah, you can see quite quickly whether it's a boulder or lead that she is where she needs to be. We used to joke because on the lead, because you got those two qualification routes. Often you can qualify on the first one if you do really high or top it, and you can actually look at the results and say you don't actually have to bother to climb the second one. You'll be in, and that's happened a few times. So that was it was almost like a wow. I never thought that would happen.
Is that the strategy? Like, just don't really do the second one?
No, I think I don't think. Well, certainly. I mean, some of the athletes have talked in the past around. I don't want to come out last, so I'll deliberately muck up a bit. But I just the margins are so close now,
Yeah.
especially with the boulder scoring system and stuff. That I think you can't have that attitude. So yeah, certainly for Erin, I don't think she ever gives anything less than 100%. Although she will sometimes tape her fingers for the lead routes
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
on the qualification. So she'll sort of bank a bit of skin and maybe compromise the climb slightly.
Okay, smart. Yeah, I'm surprised you would say that it's a lot less stressful now, because now there's like more expectations involved too, with like making finals, and then if you don't make finals, then it's a lot more painful, maybe.
Yeah, but it was depressing. I can't think of the right word. I sort of think it's quite hard to maintain that level all the time. So I think she's been on a final streak since the beginning of 2023. I mean, she made the finals in Prague in 23, but then was appealed out, which is fine. And then every finals through to Innsbruck Boulder, where she didn't make the final, and that was purely down to performance.
Yeah, like was that a stressful moment or like disappointment?
It was more disappointment for her because she was so close to Boulder 3 and Boulder 4. And on another day, I'm sure she would have sent one or both of them, and that would have got her in quite comfortably. I think you've got to be pragmatic. I remember she called us up after when she got appealed out in Prague in 24, and we were bracing ourselves for full on depression.
Okay, yeah.
And she was just like, we're like, oh, you sound okay. And she's like, yeah, I just wasn't good enough. We're like, yeah, but you were good enough. Yeah, you got in. She goes, no, I wasn't good enough. If I'd been good enough, it wouldn't have mattered if they'd appealed me out of one. I would have had enough points to get through anyway. So, I wasn't good enough. I just need to get better. So she was really massively pragmatic about that. And, I'd sort of say after Innsbruck, Boulder, that was when we had the discussion. So, again, pragmatic about it and sort of saying, well, what's different? Why, why didn't I perform as I would have expected to perform? Why did I throw myself so much at Boulder 3 and not save something for Boulder 4, which was the power boulder? So I think as long as she's taking something from each of them, it's disappointing, but as long as she's taking something from it and moving forward in her mind and from what we can see, I think it's sort of oh okay. And I guess that's the journey towards getting to that point where you're like, okay, I now feel I am good enough, and I've got the mindset, and I've got the structure and the team that actually I should be making finals, and I should be challenging for the medals every single time, getting into the Yanya light category.
Yeah. Well, that's a good mindset to have. I'm glad to hear that. None of these were like super depressing moments for her.
I think they were different. I think she was upset, but I
Sure,
think
yeah.
you can be upset, can't you? But then you just need to process it and think, okay, what do I change or what do I do differently?
Yeah, can you think of, like, the most stressful competition that you've had to watch?
Uh, yeah, Budapest OQS. So it was the second qualifier, and she'd got third in the first one in Shanghai. So it was you're sort of thinking, oh yes, this is nailed on. She's going to get the Olympic ticket. And she had a well, not disastrous. She had a really bad for her boulder round. Um, and we were suddenly like, oh god, she's got to come out and do. She had to get to the head wall. Actually, I think a hold or two onto the head wall in order to get into semi-finals. And we're like, God, if she doesn't make semi-finals, then this is going to be the most stressful, watch because people could actually overtake her. So that was hugely stressful. I think I can't. Yeah, hugely. I think there's a video that is on one of her YouTubes, which is Callum, my son, videoing her, and the video he's super. It's literally like this. He was like, and then I think there's a bit where he goes, "That's it, she's in." In semis.
I'll have to find
Yes,
that.
that was probably the most stressful. It was about 34 degrees. It was really baking hot. So you're sort of like you've got heat stress. As I say this as a non-athlete, so as a spectator,
Okay.
you got heat stress and stress.
Yeah.
It was yeah, that was quite an unpleasant environment. Obviously the athletes had it easy because they just had to climb up this wall in 34-degree heat.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty simple.
Yeah, that was probably the most stressful because you're thinking, my God, this is a huge dream and a huge moment which might be about to disappear.
So you were there in person for that?
We went to the Budapest ones, which was really great because yeah, that I mean, and again, we were bystanders in that. Probably the first time I'd seen her when she actually got you approached by fans.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd never seen that before, so that was quite nice. Yeah, so when she came out of the athlete area, we'd sort of migrated round there, but we didn't get to talk to her for quite a long time because she was just working her way through a crowd, which was quite surreal to see your daughter, with strangers wanting her autograph and stuff.
Yeah, no, she had suddenly blew up. I think it was I don't wanna say, like, surprising, but, yeah, I think still, like, around that time, it was still pretty early, not a lot of people knew who she was, and so it
No,
was kind
not
of like
yeah. I'd say even in the UK, she was still relatively unknown. I think Rachel used to say, a coach used to sort of say, "Yeah, you're the best bowler in the UK, and nobody knows it." Erin. Yeah, it was a silent rise, wasn't it? And I think, yeah, and even at the Olympics, because I think she must have been one of the lowest, because I think it was on World Cup ranking or world ranking. So she was always either the last out or the first out, depending on which round it was. It was a long way back, and OQS as well. So she was like, yeah, you're sort of thinking, oh yeah, these are the positions, and then Erin came out almost like last, and was able, well, unfortunately for somebody, knocked them out.
Yeah, I mean, it was so interesting, like, I remember when I had first interviewed her, she was just saying that she was still, like, waiting hours in ISO for, like, qualies, so came a really long way. It's very interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah. That's also presented a challenge because I think qualifying. She's struggled a bit with the qualifying high up in semis. It means you come out earlier for semis, and that didn't give her enough time to warm up,
Oh, yeah.
so she had to adapt her warm up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite weird. Yeah, it's quite weird how you have to continue to adapt to your sort of what your performance is giving you.
Yeah, it's ever changing. And of course, how was your experience at the Olympics? Did you get to enjoy the venue much, or was it mostly just stressful to watch?
That was yeah, it was okay actually. Yeah, it was. There was a little bit of stress. Actually, there was probably quite a lot of stress around because at that point she really wanted to make finals, and yeah, there was a possibility. It wasn't beyond the realms of possibility, so that was a bit stressful. But I'd say the atmosphere was fantastic. The venue was fantastic. It was bloody hot again, but it was an amazing venue, packed, literally at capacity as well, which was fantastic. to see they did a really, really good job. Um, yeah, and so that sort of, I guess, being in that environment and that setting sort of took away some of the stress. Yeah, but it was a bit stress. The things I can remember is for whatever reason when she qualified, it was like the lead part was what determined whether she was going to get into the final or not. But somehow we were sat with a whole load of other parents. So I'm guessing it must have been the friends and family tickets.
Yeah.
So we were sat with all, a number of the other parents. Um, so you had to be quite careful around,
Oh.
what you were like, because obviously you want them to get in, but in order for her to get in, other people had to fall earlier. So yeah, so it was quite weird, weird vibe. But I mean, generally all the parents are so at that level are so supportive and stuff. Yeah, so I think we were sat next to uh, uh, what's the name, Kaspakova.
Oh, yeah, Jenya.
Yenya, yeah, her parents, or her mother in particular. Yeah, she was lovely, yeah, giving us sort of hugs and stuff. Yeah, so it was really, really quite cool. I do. The other bit I remember is she'd qualified. We knew she'd qualified, so I was super happy. And then I saw her. That you had barriers at the front where the athletes could mill around, and then there was a sort of area off to the far right, which is all behind barriers, but you could actually go and talk to the athletes and get them to sign stuff, but it was sort of security patrolled. But she was at the front, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm literally two things away, and somebody had gone out of the seat, so I thought I could jump that and get to go and talk to her. So I did jump it really athletically, jumped it,
Nice, yeah.
and went to talk to her. I was like, wow, yeah, this is amazing. It's happening. And she was like, yeah, I can't believe it. And then I could see people minutes. I'll go back to my seat. And I tried to jump back into my seat, completely messed it up and nearly
Oh.
smacked my head
Oh,
up.
jeez.
So I looked very uncool getting back into it. Yeah. So that was, um, yeah, I mean, that was, I guess, stressful but happy. And then the final was less stressful until until there was a brief moment where you're thinking, "Oh, you know, could
Big
she
podium.
could
Yeah.
she scrape into third?" I don't think you're ever going to get first or second because I think Brooke and Yanya had sort of wrapped them up. But depending on her lead, I or Jessie may not have overtaken her. But I mean, by her own admission, she made that lead route really hard. I mean, she fought really hard as well, but yeah, she didn't read it maybe in the most efficient manner. But in reality, I think by that stage we were just massively happy she'd made it to the final and got to climb again. Yeah, and then suddenly she had all the power. I remember running over to the athlete area where you could talk to them, and the big security guards would step in front of her and say, she always stop you and say, "Is it okay if this person approaches you?"
Wow, yeah.
I was like, "What? It's me, Erin." So yeah, that was quite funny watching her. Yeah, he can come over.
Okay, that's nice to hear. I'm glad you had a not too stressful time.
I was gonna say the other interesting. We went to I'm assuming everybody does this, but they have like houses, like the GB house.
Oh,
So
okay.
all the athletes and all the friends and family, because you can't go to the village, obviously, where they're staying. So generally after the event, they can invite you to this GB house,
Hmm.
which is like,
I didn't know this was
really.
a thing, so that's
Oh right, yeah.
interesting.
Well, I think, yeah. So we went there, which is really nice. Yeah, it's a really nice location. They have a bar, and they have a bar which I think lots of people can go to. Then by special invitation, you can go into the special athlete area, where again they have another bar and food and nibbles and stuff. But it's a really beautiful setting. So she invited us there. Toby had just won his gold, I think the night before, so he was there, discovering alcohol. I think,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
uh, yeah, I had my dad out there. Erin had one of her sort of best friends from school there. Lindsay was there. Callum was there. So we went into this area, and and all proceeded to get really, really quite merry. And about
Okay.
halfway through getting merry, she was offered this interview with like Eurosport or somebody, but he was at the Eiffel Tower or looking out over the Eiffel Tower. She was like, "Oh, I can't get there. I can't get there. No, 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 no. They'll send you a limo. So
Oh.
they'll put you in a limo, drive you out there. You'll get interviewed by Shauna Coxey and other Olympians, and then they'll drive you back."
Ah.
and Toby had done it. He was like, "Yeah, it's really good. Go for it. Go for it." So she was, I think, she hardly ever drinks, but she was definitely, semi under the influence when
Oh
she had to do
wow.
that interview.
Huh.
And then they put it on the big screen where, in GB House, they put it on the big screen so we could watch it. And, they'd obviously she never wears makeup, but they'd obviously put makeup on there for this, television appearance. And she just looked bemused through the whole thing. Like, she went up in a lift and she walked through this crowd of people who were all clapping her. She's just walking through going, "What? What's happening?"
Wow.
But that was quite cool. Then she arrived back. We had some more food and drink, and then so that was really, really, really good. And yeah, really nicely. I obviously never experienced anything like that before, but that was quite nice. Quite a nice way, I think, for the athletes to then celebrate with the families, because you really don't get to see them personally because they're always on another side of a fence.
Yeah. Well, now that I know that backstory, I think I would need to go back and try to watch that again, see if I can see that she's under the influence. Same with
I
Toby,
think
I guess.
yeah, yeah, I'm not sure when he went large on the on the alcohol front.
Yeah. You were about to
Yeah,
say Shauna.
I think Shauna did a lot of the talking for Erin,
Okay. Yeah.
which was lovely. I mean, Shauna's been absolutely fantastic to Erin through the whole sort of experience.
Yeah, I hope I can find that video again. I feel like I must have watched it at some point, but now I really got to find it.
Yeah, I think it was Eurosport. But I might be wrong. If I can remember it, I'll ping you a.
Yeah, I'll try to find the link too. But if you find it, let me know. So yeah, I mean, you've watched the sport evolve over time. Lots of variations in setting. What do you think about the evolution of setting? Like, does it ever scare you to watch Erin throw herself around on dynamic boulders, or where do you draw the line in terms of danger?
I yeah, I don't really. I think injury is part of most sports, isn't it? Yeah, we went to a European Youth European Cup in Graz, and yeah, we one of the German guys, who is now climbing on the World Cup circuit, broke his leg, but like audibly broke his
Oh,
leg.
ew. Yeah.
Um, and I remember grabbing Erin and sort of moving her away from it. But obviously you get bad things like that happening. If Natalia sort of doing a ACL, um, but I sort of think that is the case with any elite sport because you're right at the cutting edge of it. Um, I so in terms of the evolution, I guess it sort of had to evolve because I think you know, the athletes doing it just became more and more focused on competition climbing. Yes, I think it evolved from a people who climb then doing competition climbing. But I think you've now got people who just really focus on competition climbing, and the rock climbing is a side hustle if it's a
Yeah.
hustle at all.
Yeah.
Um, and so the things which challenged at the early stages of the sport just were not challenging. I even look at some of the lead routes where you sort of see, you look at it, you think, my God, look, there's a horrible crimp section in there. And they're resting on the crimps because their finger strength is so strong. They're sort of like, oh, good, this is a rest. I can just lock in. Um, so yeah, I guess it had to evolve, and it had to evolve in ways, with different sort of holds and macros and volumes to force movement and to change movement and body shape. So yeah, I think I sort of think it had to evolve. I s and actually I like I think lead probably evolved or changed less, but even now, yeah, when you look at a lead route now, it's comprised of multiple sort of sections, um, and you often snakes up rather than goes straight up, and you still get the sort of power endurance routes, but I'd argue they're generally the ones which are topped a lot, whereas the ones with sort of more interesting moves, which either cause um, concern amongst the athletes or sort of test them.
Yeah.
They're
Bit
the
of
ones where you get the
hesitation.
separation. Yeah, and so they're generally like dynos in lead routes. I sort of think they set them relatively easily, but it just adds another element of stress to the athletes, and so they might get it, but they might have expended a whole load of energy in getting it, or concern in getting it. So yeah, I sort of see that. And on the boulder side, yeah, you've always had slabs, and you've always had sort of an element of power. Yeah, I think the two new ones are coordinations and dynos, and I guess they were sort of in there before. They just become a lot more intricate, and yeah, you're no longer dynoing to a jug. You're now dynoing to something which is not ideal, or you're having to grab a tow hook in there whilst doing that. And again, I sort of just see that as the evolution of the sport. Look at the sort of dynos they were doing 2-3 years ago compared to what they're doing now, and they're a lot harder. Coordination moves are a lot more intricate. It's just natural evolution, isn't it? And I think the no text holes don't look very pretty, but they can force a movement. I like the dual tech. I think the dual techs are really clever, and I think they look pretty. But the clear holds, I don't think they look pretty. But they add another element. But again, most people have got to grips with them now, so they're not. They're sort of nothing new. So I suspect it has to continue to evolve, and I suspect it will continue to get you know. More intricate and harder for the athletes. But I actually like the fact that you for boulder in particular, you're tested across a wide range of skills. So just being good at power or just being good at slab is highly unlikely to get you into a semi-final, because you have to be good at all sorts. The crimps, the slopers, the movements, which I think is much better as a much better demonstration of being you know, an athlete in an elite sport, an Olympic sport, and something which is hopefully becoming more and more watchable to the public. So I like that. I also personally I like the combined format. I think that was really exciting. I know it's not there for the Olympics, but for the next Olympics, but I actually thought that the combined format made for a very exciting competition, and obviously favors people who are good at both, but it sort of added some interesting elements of, cool, this person's really good at lead and has had an okay boulder round, so they could actually jump up.
Yeah, that's actually quite a hot take among the community, even among the athletes. So it's interesting to hear that you like the combined. I mean, I feel like part of it is maybe that Erin's pretty good in
Good at both,
both.
yeah. I suspect that helps.
Yeah. If she was like a boulder lead specialist, I don't know if you'd be saying the same thing.
I probably would not know. Well, yeah, I don't mind the fact that it's two separate disciplines, but it would have been fantastic if they'd kept it as, we've got effectively a combined format. But we will, whoever wins the boulder round will get a gold medal for the boulder, and whoever wins the lead will get a lead gold medal, and then we'll put the two scores together, and whoever wins both of them will also get medals. That would have been fantastic. But I think the fact that we've still got it at the Olympics, and the fact that we are getting more medals is great. It'd be really interesting to see. Well, to see what the selection criteria are for the Olympics, because it's not very many athletes, and if you give whatever 16 or to actually make up a proper speed competition, I think it comes down to 11 or 10 for lead and 10 for boulder. So that's not a very exciting competition. So you sort of got to try to find a way to say, well, we'd ideally like people to do both, because then we can at least have 20 odd people and have a proper semi-final format leading into a final. But I'm sure they're thinking about that.
Yeah, I think that's info we're all waiting on. I mean, I would love to see like individual boulder and lead medals, and then also like a combined medal. I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, they do it in gymnastics, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. But also, going back to like safety in the sport, I'm just thinking about like the mat situation in Bern. Do you have any like thoughts on that one?
uh, not massively. I mean, I thought Bern was an amazing. Yeah, I didn't go, but from what I could see in the feedback I've had at the venue, it sounded amazing. It was obviously temperature controlled, really hot outside, but okay inside. It takes away all the concern on wind, rain, all that sort of stuff. And they had 4,000 odd people there, so that must be one of the biggest audiences, if not the biggest audience of any World Cup this year. so the venue itself I thought was fantastic. The setting, well, I'm bound to say this, the setting was fantastic. It was the best Boulder World Cup ever, and everyone won.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Uh, um, yeah, in terms of the hardness of the mats, there was that one move. Well, yes, I think Yufe Pan hurt himself, didn't he? Falling, and
Yeah.
there was that one specific move, um, and there were some hard falls.
It was a crazy
I,
move. I really
yeah,
liked it, but yeah.
yeah. It's really hard, isn't it? Yeah, I think the mats were hard. I guess because they were brand new. Um, yeah, it's just really hard, isn't it? You sort of think, what can you do? Do you mandate a softer mat, and then you exclude a whole load of more venues from being able to put on World Cups because they've got to shell out X amount of money for these specific mats, which are going to be, probably not last for very long, because they're softer, more open to damage or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I do know the some of the coaches who were appealing that particular boulder. And I do, I sort of respect their views, but yeah, I almost sort of also go down the line of, well, yeah, this is the sport. Maybe it's more direct interaction with the root setters to sort of say, is there any way we can put that move lower, or have it as a lower down move? But I also think having them high up adds another element of, I don't know, excitement or commitment to the climbers.
So you would not have put in an appeal to make it safer.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't have, but I'm not, I'm not as attuned maybe to the risks that they may well have been seeing.
Sure. Yeah.
Because some of the women took some big hits as well. I always think, I love watching Zelia Rabazu, because I think if there's a way for her to try to hit the wall or fall off in a dangerous looking manner,
Oh, jeez.
she'll take it.
Yeah.
she's amazingly committed.
Okay, good to know. And yeah, congrats on her performance in Burn. It was a good comp. I really liked the Burn comp.
Yeah, that was it seemed to be a good one.
Okay, so let's get into some of the audience questions. Had a good few come in. People were really excited to hear from you. So, first one: how does having a comp kid influence the family dynamic? Is it tricky to balance, especially with more than one child?
So I thought it would be a lot trickier than it actually is. So my son climbed pretty much all the way up to university, and then discovered other things at university, and then sort of got back into climbing at the end of university, and now is probably training harder than he's ever trained in his sort of life. I think he's got a side hustle or side bet on with Erin around
I see.
going to the nationals, and seeing where he can place.
Oh,
He's not going to win it.
sure.
I don't mean that
The brutal
derogatory to
honesty
him,
again. Yeah.
but yeah, I think he's sort of thinking, oh, well, I wonder if I could make semis or that sort of level. So
Is that going to be this year?
I think it's in January. That's when they
Oh,
tend to hold them.
exciting. Can't wait to see what happens.
So it'd be a bit of that. That might be quite interesting if he did somehow make finals and get on the team. That might be an interesting dynamic. But yeah, so they've always got on really well, which I put down to great parenting.
Okay,
But I think
good
in
job.
reality,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think in reality, it's because we moved around a lot as when they were young. So we've obviously lived in lots of different countries, well, quite a few different countries, and then in different locations around the UK. So they sort of had to rely on each other, that to get on whilst they created new networks. Then as soon as they created a new network, we ripped them out of that and put them into something,
Yeah.
made them strong. But yeah, for that reason, they seem to get on really well. They both share a house in Sheffield, which I didn't. I thought that might not work that well, but that works really well.
Awesome.
Callum, whenever he can, will run her around to the various walls that she wants to go to, pick her up, and then we'll often train with her whenever he can as well. So weirdly, there's absolutely no resentment. He's probably more invested in some ways than we are as parents. in what she's doing. He does all of her sort of social media and YouTube
Right.
content, so he's sort of enjoyed doing that with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did expect that there might be a bit of resentment on what she's achieved in climbing, and all that sort of stuff. But they touch wood, nothing yet.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's been really, really good, and actually sort of helped out a lot in
Yeah.
terms of sharing some
Yeah.
of the support burden. That's the wrong word.
Sure.
Support
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a village, so that's really nice to hear. So this is a question from another parent. How do you balance celebrating podiums so that it doesn't place too much emphasis on good results equals like good vibes? Because maybe that like results in pressure to perform. And then like balance it with also like seeing bad results as being valuable.
Yeah, so with that's a really hard one, isn't it? No matter what level they're performing at, because you sort of want them to do well for them. Um, so I think with Erin, she went through a phase where she was moving from sort of doing the fun competitions to moving into the sort of more focused on nationals and internationals and all that sort of stuff. And obviously she had to place highly in order to qualify for the teams, and then highly in order to get selection for the World Cups and European Cups. So we I guess we focused on what she needed to do in order to place in those positions, but also if she didn't, it wasn't the end of the world. Yeah, we can go away, we can work on the areas of development, and and see what happens the following year. Um, I so I think that the key bit I would say is that you are constantly looking at, if you win, that's great, but almost in the nicest possible way, you sort of got to forget that and say, okay, so you won, but what could you do better, or what didn't you do as well as you could have done? So there's a great moment where you're celebrating, and then there's a moment where you're actually looking at how you did that and what you could have done better. I also think there's a challenge, and this might actually come down to one of your earlier questions around the not so much the parent culture, probably more the athlete culture. So when you start to flip into a World Cup, so one, you've got selection event in January, but if you've pre-qualified, so I think most of the governing bodies have pre-qualification criteria. So by winning a World Cup, you pre-qualify. So Erin's pre-qualified. She has to go to the selection event, but she's already selected.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming like Brooke Rabbitu was probably pre-qualified by placing where she did in the Olympics. So she probably still had to go to selection, but she was already selected. So certainly that's how it works in the UK. So
I think here, if you pre-qualify, then you don't like compete to.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
right, okay. So we still, they still want you to go. I think because it shows everybody where the potential level is.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to perform. So she's not peaking for those competitions at all. And then as you in the UK, you tend to have a few competitions. I call them fun competitions, but they're like the Climbing Works International Festival. I think it's
Yeah.
called QIF, and Plywood Masters. So they're good pre-season comps, which are really hard comps, and they operate on a qualification, semi-finals, final basis. But a lot of people use those as a benchmark to see where they are. But obviously, if you're focused, because you've got the World Cups, if you're actually focusing on peaking in April, you're not really going to peak for them either. So she sort of struggled a bit with, I'm going to go to this competition and I might not win it, even though theoretically I should. And then I think you do start to get a bit of expectation, because you've got somebody saying, oh yeah, they're not going to say this to your face, but I beat Erin.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, I don't want to do these competitions anymore. It's no fun. But actually, they still have value because it's it's sort of showing you where you are, even though you might still be in the middle of a horrible training block and absolutely knackered. So I think that was the other one in terms of podiuming isn't everything, and we certainly don't sort of say to her, go and win another gold medal, or make sure you get to the finals. We're like, if you climb well, there's no reason why you shouldn't get there, but the margins are so fine. A simple mistake somewhere doesn't make you a bad climber, but does mean that we should be analysing results and stuff, whether you win or not. And then the other one I think is that flip to winning everything locally to actually, I may not be winning this because, and these people might be peaking for it. GB selection, some of those athletes are absolutely peaking for that because it's the competition they have to perform at to get on the team. Whereas you're at that time, you're probably at your weakest. You've had 2 months of intense training. You probably not really had much of a break before going into the competition, so you're absolutely not peaking for it. You're just going to it and sort of accepting that may well mean you don't win it.
Yeah, so I guess just being realistic and as honest with yourself as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully that advice helps out. This one is a bit more of a fun one. Do you get final approval of the shots of yourself on YouTube?
No, I get no. I don't even know they're filming half the time.
I'm going to need some context for this, but this person said, I'm specifically thinking of you pretending to ride a horse and getting caught by some random passerby. I don't know this one.
Yeah, you have to. Have you ever seen Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy
No,
Grail?
I actually haven't. I should.
So they obviously they're Arthurian knights, but they don't have horses. They just literally pretend that they're riding a horse. And generally they have somebody with coconut shells following them to make the clippy cloppy noises. But I think it was in Innsbruck and we were walking down to get coffee. And I sort of thought there was this lovely bridge which looked a bit medieval. So I thought, let's ride our horses across the bridge. And they were obviously, then as I rode off, they put their phones on. Then when they caught up to me on the other side, I had to suddenly pretend to dismount my horse because there was a random stranger walking the other way looking quite concerned.
I'll have to find this clip. It was in Innsbruck.
Yeah, I think it's the Quest for the 8C.
Ah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. But I'm on, and they'll film when I'm not even aware. It's very, and so there's one, lots of times when I'm not even aware they're filming, and then I'll watch it later and I'll be like, oh, thanks for putting that in.
You watch all the videos?
Well, I don't get to see any of the the prep or what's going in and what's coming out, but they generally tell me when they're out, and then me and Lindsay will sit down with a cup of tea and watch.
Oh, that's cute.
We won't understand half of the humor and the brain rot and all that sort of stuff.
That's fine.
But apparently it's funny.
Yeah. No, that's cute. Okay, and let's do one last one. This is all in good fun, but how does it feel to be a worse climber than your child? Or if you had any other competitive goals of your own?
So, I don't know when it happened. When they overtook me, they both overtook me. I guess I was probably quite happy. I certainly wasn't disappointed.
That's
and it
good.
probably happened slowly. In that they would overtake me on slabs and then, and then gradually on more powerful boulders and that sort of stuff. They've always been much better than me on lead, just because of I have to grip everything as hard as I can, and therefore I'm super pumped about halfway up. So that wasn't so bad. The one which was a bit galling was when my son stopped climbing, I got better than him again, and I was doing quite a lot of. I was probably climbing maybe 4 times a week at that point because I was working a lot with Erin, or going to a lot of stuff with Erin. And then I broke my thumb really badly in Innsbruck.
How?
Oh yeah, you shouldn't ask that question. I just leave it at, I broke my thumb in Innsbruck and it sounds cool. I actually did it running to catch the bus. I fell over running to catch the bus. Really upsetting. yeah, and then they set it, and then they called me up the next day and said, no, this is much worse than we thought. We're going to have to come in and reset it. And that's horrible. I don't, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but they took me in and they sort of said, oh, we're going to break it again. You're not under your arm sort of, you can't feel anything in your arm, but you can look. So I was looking at them thinking,
Oh,
how are
why
they
would
going to
you
break
look
it
at
again?
that?
And they got a hammer and like a chisel thing out. And I looked away then.
Yeah.
So I don't want to watch that. Yeah, but that was all like pinned up for a while. And at that point I was climbing quite hard for me. Yeah, probably on the second hardest grade in most of the climbing walls.
Wow, really?
Um,
Okay.
and then whilst it took ages to recover, and whilst I was recovering, my son started climbing again. And by the time I'd got back to it, he was better than me. So that was the only galling one, because I thought, I could have probably had a few more bragging rights for a bit
Wow.
longer if I'd actually been fit.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's it. No other goals, man. I'm just happy nowadays to yeah, to sort of keep the aches and sprains manageable.
So yeah, wow, it sounds like you climb pretty hard. Whole family climbs pretty hard. What grade would you say you climb?
Now, I didn't know the V grades,
Sure, yeah.
so I'd say V6, sometimes V7, very occasionally, but V5, that's nice and easy. Yeah, not nice and easy, but I can happily do most of those.
All right, good to know. Yeah, I think that wraps it up then. That's all the questions I had. Thanks for joining me. And any like last minute thoughts you want to get out there?
No, I think the only thing I'd say as a parent is, I think, yeah, well, one, keep it fun as long as you possibly can, and then, yeah, if they really are serious about making it or taking it to the next level, yeah, sort of try to find a way to support them in that. But I mean, I still think the brutal honesty bit is absolutely required, because I think they've got to agree to that commitment as much as you've got to then sort of say, well, how can I support you to get where you need to get? But I'm only going to do that if you're 100% committed to it as well. Yeah, so if you've not got any interest in committing to this training plan and committing to this time, and not having the sort of social life which you might want at that age, yeah, then there's no point in me committing my time either.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's a bit of sort of brutal honesty, or at least feedback at some point if one party isn't fully committing to it.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to shout out, or I don't know if you're very active on social media, if there's like,
I'm not at all. It's
all right. Well, then just thank you so much for joining me. It was really good to get that insight. Yeah, very unique perspective. So it was great. Thank you so much.
no problem. Cheers.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Otherwise, you are a super fake climber. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, I'd appreciate if you rate it 5 stars, and you can continue the discussion on the free competition climbing Discord linked in the description. Thanks again for listening.